countrymen and the women, if there is anything that Zambia should not experience, that thing is violence. One pope said, the world where every country will build its own destiny will not be built by bombs and bullets. Paraphrasing this, I would say that the country where every tribe will build its own destiny will not be shaped by violence. Let's refrain from whatever is going to be reflected as the violence. What we must do is to continuously engage in dialogue. Dialogue. For with dialogue, you turn an enemy into a friend. Without dialogue, you turn a friend into an enemy.
Dialogue, and genuine dialogue for that matter, is the answer for the misunderstandings among the Zambian political parties. Without genuine dialogue, as the Executive Director of the Zambian Human Rights for Persons with Disabilities, Mr. Elejangwale has put it, Zambia shall be engulfed in civil strife. However, it is not debatable that youths have always been in forefront of the electoral violence that has rocked Zambia in the recent past. Frantic effort was made to talk to several youths and the general public across the country for their views on electoral violence. In Mansa, I spoke to Mumbi Mumbi, the program manager at Radio Yangen, while in Kitwe, I spoke to Patience once.
Violence anywhere in the world has never achieved any goals or has never achieved any goal, because violence has always just led to more violence, and you get into a vicious cycle where violence just begins, and then what follows violence is basically destruction of property, destruction of human life, and the retardation in Europe. We briefly observed when we had riots in Mansa a few months ago, where just about 3-4 days of rioting led to a lot of households running out of their foodstuffs. A lot of essential services could not be delivered because basically the situation was very violent and very volatile. So that was just on a small scale. Now when you look at a bigger scale, you begin to realize that violence does not pay.
As the young people, we should remain united and say no.
An effort was further made to have the views about Kenya, the country which encountered electoral violence recently. Dr. Kipyego Cheruge is the Kenyan High Commissioner in Zambia.
Economic growth rate that we had acquired, close to 7% or 6%, evaporated overnight. There was no economic growth, and it took a long time for us to recover. In fact, up to now, 3 years down the road, I cannot really be sure that we're fully recovered from that particular shock that the country received because of selection violence. So definitely then, if something like that was what happened in Zambia, you'll be sure that even the value of your watchers fall. All of a sudden the foreign currency will be there. The new investments that you have attracted over the years will disappear. And you would really, unemployment, all those things that you've made strengths, all of a sudden will disappear, and you'll find that unemployment rate will go up. There will be no foreign exchange. You may even end up not having fuel, or not even having enough money to buy fuel. So that is why the cost is just unimaginable. Leave alone, of course, the human cost. Because of violence, people can be hurt, and people could lose their lives. And we really don't want to do that.
Still on the marathon of talking to the Zambian news, in Kitwe, I spoke to Elias Museni, who is the voice of the youth program coordinator. While in Solwezi, I had a chat with Lawrence Smatiel, who is the director of youth in action and also a youth activist, Kenneth Mugiana.
No to violence. That not is counterproductive.
If you look at what happened in Fumbwe, some churches were burnt, some houses were burnt, and already millions of kwacha were lost, and even lives were lost. That was very unfortunate, and you can't buy life. So you can see what political violence can bring. One, the country will spend a lot of money trying to build the nation, and you deter development.
There's war in the country, then it is the youth that are going to suffer. Many youth will not go to school. Many youth will not find jobs because everyone will just be running up and down.
In Mangu, I met the executive director of Adolescent Representative Health Advocates, Brian Kayongo.
We have our own properties to lose, we can't carry our cattle, we can't carry almost the other things that we worked for up to now. So there are very negative consequences. No wonder we're saying that for young people like me, the best we can do is to be patriotic, the best thing we can do is to resist. If someone comes with any kind of bribe to tell you, can you go and throw a stone, or comes with beer, can you drink so that you can fight who? I think the best thing to do is to desist from such politicians because they have their self motives than the good intention of the community at large.
As a matter of having experience, His Excellency Kiego Cheluget has an example to share with
give an
Zambians.
example of our country, Kenya, which also for many years had been a beacon of hope and still continues to be the beacon of hope for many countries. All around Kenya, we have conflicts in all our countries, except Tanzania. And many people ran away to seek refuge in Kenya. They still do, even up to now, in the case of Somalia. But then just one day or 2 days in the year 007, as we went into the elections, tensions built up, ethnic animosities were aroused, very, very unrealistic, and some kind of rumor mill was being established about what was going on. And the end result was not a very pleasant one. Completely tarnished the name of the country. Kenyans turned against each other, neighbor against neighbor. We lost more than 1,300 Kenyans unnecessarily. And up to now, we have not fully recovered from it.
Dr. Solomon Jerry is the Deputy Commissioner and the Director of Operations in the Zambia Police Service. And by the way, he is the one who sang the background song of this documentary.
We should always think, talk, and depend on peace. Above all, you put God first, everything is easy. Where we have anarchy, just know that you're in the camp of the devil. Because Lucifer started from heaven to bring about for chaos. You and me, we belong to Christ. This is our prayer that we shall continue to adhere to the principles of Christ.
Father Mike Maries, who is the Apostolic Administrator at Catholic Diocese of Mansa, has this message for the politicians.
A lot of people are talking about peace, praying for peace in churches, political parties. But it's not enough just to talk about peace. We need to be agents of peace. And we are convinced as a church that there cannot really be lasting peace without justice and without reconciliation.
Remy Chilekwa is also a bishop in Kasama district of Northern Province.
Whatever divergent views that we carry, let's just make every effort to make peace. Because at the end of the day, Zambia will remain. Our views may end, might end, or whatever we're trying to push might end, but Zambia will still continue. So the larger picture for me is...
Foundation for Democratic Process Executive Director, Mr. McDonald Chipenzi, has this appeal.
I want to appeal to our politicians that we should walk the talk of peace. We should not just talk about peace, and yet our actions undermine our talks. So I want to see where politicians will be able to stop their cadres. We are so hopeful that politicians will have taken a leaf from what happened in this country.
Precious ones, is a keep your best female youth, man the news editor with Flavor FM Radio.
We should remain united as we have always been. Yeah, because we are a Christian nation and we should maintain that. That's very important. We should remain and be an example to the outside world that we are a Zambia that is united.
How about the status of refugees in the event of civil strife? Kunda Mukando of Sanje district in central Zambia, and Esther Kalava, a female youth based in Kasama of northern province, have this to say.
Zambia is blessed in the sense that we've been actually accommodating refugees from multiple nations around us. So the way I look at it, if we have to turn things otherwise, the peace that we are enjoying right now, we are trying to play around with it simply because we've never been through war. Yeah. We don't know the gravity of the situation or what it means to be destitute. War should not be allowed, war should not be encouraged.
Imagine you being a refugee in another country. It won't be meaningful, to be useless. You won't live life to your satisfaction. So let us take this opportunity to look at it in the best way.
Mr. Lucas Chikoti is the chairperson of Northwestern Province Council of Elders, based in Solwezi.
We have gone through a lot of experiences. You know, Northwestern Province borders Congo, borders Angola, and this is the place where we had seen people running away from the wars in these countries. And as you are aware, this province also hosts the biggest refugee camp in the name of Maya. Therefore, the experiences that we are seeing people coming from Angola, carrying dogs on their backs, thinking that it was their children. People coming from Congo, coming without even a single thing with them, not even a bag, not even anything. Maybe they traveled a number of days without food. So this thing can also happen here if we don't guard, peace, if we promote ourselves on violence. I think it will be bad for us.
Still in Solwazi, I met Women Anti-AIDS Group Program Coordinator, Fabi Mazando.
For those that are Vis-a-vis, it will be very bad because you see, this thing will just cause us to just run away and you forget your medications. Maybe you run to a different country, like a neighboring country like Congo, and the period that you're going to miss out on your ARVs, definitely the impact is bad and it's irreversible. So it will be very bad for those that are already on ARVs.
Ryan Kayongo of Mongo has this to add on Fabi Majando's point.
Some of us are on medication, tuberculosis, HIV, and so on. And in times when there are conflicts in a country like this one, which is a landlocked country, we will be forced to actually shift to another country to be refugees. And we all know that policies in different countries differ. If you used to get ART on free basis here, and we start moving to another country, that process will actually affect adherence to treatment. As a result, we lose so many lives as a result of not adhering to treatment, and maybe in that country where we are going, it may take long for us to actually be able to get medication as we used to get it like here where we
Democracy Wena, the regional Zambia station manager, also has this to add.
Our political CV in Zambia is that we have hosted refugees, and it would be good that we let violence engulf our nation just for the sake of running for office, and then we cause bloodshed, Unnecessary people are found behind bars or in hospitals, and to create an ugly picture in a country which is an oasis of peace, which has been known for so many years. And I think as Zambians, we have been branded with this trademark that we are a peace-loving nation. And let us at least continue with this picture which you have portrayed to the whole world. You imagine that in Southern Africa, a country which is a beacon of peace, is actually Zambia.
Kenyan envoy in Zambia, Dr. Kipiego Chaluget, agrees with Liwena's point.
Zambia really is a beacon of hope for Africa. Zambia has been a very peaceful country all these years. Many African countries look up to Zambia for many things. Zambia has hosted refugees, people running away from places of conflict, and Zambia has done very well in the liberation struggle of Africa. You have your founding father, President Kaunda, did very well to fight for the rights of the African people. So it's against this background that very unfortunate if just one single election spell the end of all the good things that Zambia has done.
However, what is the solution of maintaining the brand of Zambia's beacon of hope? As Executive Director of the Southern African Center for Constructive of Resolution District, Mr. Lee Havason understands the difficulties involved in resolving conflicts once they are started.
We believe that prevention is better than cure, and one of the things we want to see with regard to preventing violence during these elections is that our police should enforce the law fairly and squarely. But also we think that our communities need to shun people who are perpetrating violence, including political parties that engage in promoting violence, must be reprimanded and shunned by the community.
It is, however, not debatable that as much as youths are always found in the forefront of political violence, they have a backing from politicians. Mumbi has no kind words for politicians who fund violence.
But those politicians that would want to entice them to involve themselves in politics, let them lead the way. Let them be in the forefront. Let's see if they can do that which they're asking the young people to do. Because I think for a long time, young people, because of their financial and economic vulnerabilities, have been taken advantage of.
Quito-based female youth, Patience Mwanza, has a reminder for the Zambian youth.
What we should remember as the young people is we are the future of today. We are the future. Now we should start thinking of what we want to do for ourselves, because those people that are using us won't be there. Yeah, so those people are just using us. So as the young people, we should refuse to be used as tools of violence by these politicians or whoever is fueling this violence. We should remain united and say no.
Elias Museng of Keep Your Voice of the Youth, and Lawrence Matiaba, the director of Solwezi-based Youth in Action Zambia organization, as well as Kenneth Mubiana, a Solwezi-based youth activist, have these appeals for the youth and the politicians.
We are strongly emphasizing and appealing to the Zambian young people that this is our country. We cannot get involved in violence or any act of disobedience. And in fact, in most cases, if politicians come and use us in that direction, we always remain poor. So which means it's not help, it has never been help. We cannot remain staying throwers and trouble bring us in instead of us getting involved in productive habits and activities.
Let's not use young people as a tool of violence. We know that these old men, they are quite clever because they are rich, they have the resources at their disposal, and they want to use young people just to bring confusion. I think such kind of people are not needed in society, and as young people we need to look and scan through these politicians critically and see who is genuine, because if they have those resources at their disposal. They need to channel them in the right way to bring development, not violence.
Politicians should not make use of the youth, by maybe advising or making us or sending us in front of them, then they remain behind. Then the youth are the ones that are being sent to begin throwing stones. I think that one we should not be tolerated.
Have you ever wondered why violence funders never recruit their children as tools of violence?
Let's not take advantage of the situation of young people currently. We know that there are a lot of issues surrounding young people, poverty, unemployment, and so on, but we should not take advantage of their vulnerability in order to use them for negative things. I think the best thing we can do is let's start by recruiting our children. If we see if we can allow our children to actually engage themselves in such kind of violences. I think let's take young people as equal partners.
Okay, Aliwena amplifies the thoughts of Kayongo.
There are fellow youths out there, much as they are agitated with a lot of issues which they want to be addressed by the authorities or maybe the leaders. Let us not be used as tools for violence, because at the end of the day, we'll be the victims. The leaders themselves will be just in their homes enjoying their time. You know, one good thing is that these leaders on the top actually embrace each other. You see, when they are sick, they fly themselves to the hospital. When they have problems, yes, they take care of each other. But when a youth is involved in a problem, or maybe they are sick, nobody comes to their aid.
The political figures might be there. They might differ today, but tomorrow they will still laugh and still reconcile. They'll be together. So it is up to us, the youth.
Many times we've encountered situations where you have politicians that will actually portray this picture in the public of being sworn enemies, but behind the curtains, these guys would sit down to share a cup of coffee. So similarly, you begin to think, why can't the young people see it through those particular lines?
People have thought about that because they're carried away by politicians who are coming up with selfish motives or to win themselves. Because when they are in power, they might not even remember you. You see, they are just doing things selfishly or to think about themselves, just to get to plot one.
The chairperson of the elders in the northwestern province of Zambia had this advice for violence perpetrators.
We are appealing to our youths to do away with violence. Or what it is that the youths, instead of using them for developmental programs, they have now been tended to be used in violence, which we are saying that is not good. Because when you start up a fight, when you bring in violence, when you are fighting, you don't choose that you should only fight somebody who is not your relative. Now, if there is a fight, you fight anybody, and among them that people that will be fighting are your own relatives. You only realize when maybe the fight is over.
Following the violence that recently erupted in the Western Province, the Secretary General of the Vinyungandambo, Mr. Samuel Karunyan, also appeals for peace among the youth of Barosela.
I would like to advise our youth of Baroseland to refrain from any forms of violence. We are not violent people. Whatever happens, please, you have been peaceful people all along. From the time of our Ritungas, and all the Ritungas, we have been very peaceful people. Even if we are provoked, we don't fight. Keep away from violence.
In any case, shall electoral violence by any chance increase the dignity of each perpetrator?
I want to appeal to all politicians and advise them that violence will not make them gain any political mileage. Violence actually will deduct from the victim the dignity that
Coach Lee Havason again emphasizes the need for tolerance, as Elias Msenge also gives a
We
warning.
want to emphasize as support that there's a need to tolerate one another. We may have different views, but if we tolerate one another, we will allow elections to pass off peacefully and continue to attract investment.
our country. But if we are going to fight one another, I think we can tear our country apart. And this really is not what we want, because conflict becomes very difficult to stop when it
Young
has
people
started.
must learn a lesson that when trouble comes, it's difficult to stop it.
It is, however, not debatable that the media is among other major stakeholders in any given election process, as it is widely used. Father Mike Merizi has this suggestion.
Those people who are threatening threatening violence and sorting out people, they should not be given a platform. And I think the media has a lots of work to do there. We will do our part as a church, but we expect the media to put their house in order and not to provoke people.
The Affordable Executive Director, MacDonald Chipens, who in fact has a media background, appeals to the media for reflection.
We also call on the media to take a bit of reflection, self-reflection, that the world attention now is on Zambia, and what we write and what we publish within the public domain will have an effect on whether we are building this country or we are destroying this country.
Mumbi of Radio Yangeni in Imansa admits that sometimes the media does compromise with certain situations.
Generally, I think we are all agreed that the role of the media is to inform, entertain, and then educate. But a number of times I think there's a little bit of some compromise that sometimes creeps in the way that media practitioners do their work. We basically become sometimes partisan in the way that we cover events, and in that particular regard then we are not doing any justice to the general community, because then we do not give them the full package of the information that will enable them to make informed reckless handling of issues has led to reactions from the general membership, and these are sometimes led to outbreaks of violence, probably not strictly speaking for Zambia, but I think we have a lot of examples that we can pick on of the role of the media in some other parts of the world where violence has broken out. And if the media has this impact and effect that it can actually bring about chaos or violence, then ideally we will begin to feel for the good of mankind, the media can still use their power to try and preach peace and bring about peace, to ensure that there is continuity, and that we're not only doing what we're doing for today, but we're also trying to do what we're doing for the betterment of the future generations to come.
In an event that violence erupts, can the media by any chance be spared?
If the media takes sides, that's where the conflict starts. As media, I think, in trying to maintain the peace that we have enjoyed in Zambia, we try to be fair and impartial in our coverage program and our news. And if there was violence in this country, the media won't be spared. So as a media, we are stakeholders to ensure that we maintain the peace during and after election.
And Precious One, an editor with Flavor FM Radio in Quito, advises the media not to take sides.
I would like to encourage my fellow journalists, we should avoid as much as possible not to base our reporting on personalities, because if we do, we might cause confusion among these political candidates.
Radio Liambai's manager, Mokeya Liwena, explains how much the general public trusts the media.
As media, we are followed religiously, and some people up to now still believe that what they hear on radio is the gospel truth. What they hear and what they read in the newspaper is actually right and nothing wrong. But if we just propagate our own agenda, even when we do that, and let's have some objectivity in our reporting, so that we don't contribute to misunderstanding which can come up as a result of that.
And as a democratic nation, Sarkozy explains how true Democrats handle their liberty.
True Democrats purely use non-violence means to defend their liberty. And so if our political parties believe in democracy, they will not employ a means of violence to win their elections.
Having gone through the electoral violence, Kenyans sympathize with Zambians.
So the people of Kenya now definitely having seen what went through, I'm sure would want to really tell Zambians not to follow the way that mistakes that we made in 07, and that really there's a peaceful way of going about this.
When political violence began increasing on a daily basis, the Electoral Commission of Zambia organized a meeting during which 28 political parties signed that they shall prevent violence from any of their political cadres, and that they shall not shield any of their cadres who shall be found wanting vis-a-vis electoral violence. The communique, which was also signed by the Zambia Police Service, was read to the press by the Patriotic Front Vice President, Dr. Guy Scott, who also signed on behalf of his party, while Captain Walusiku signed on behalf of the United Party for National Development as Secretary General, and Isaac Muntanga also signed for Major Richard Kachingwe, who is the Secretary General of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD.
We, the political parties, realizing that violence is detrimental to the development of Zambia, and recognizing that violence disenfranchises the electorate, we do hereby resolve. We pledge to uphold the rule of law, to be truthful, to respect and publicize the electoral code of conduct to our members. 2, that we will coexist and allow other political party members and supporters to campaign freely throughout the country and to display and wear their political party regalia in all public places. 3, we, with immediate effect, publicly renounce and condemn violence and convey messages of peace to all our members throughout the country. 4, we will take steps to discipline our political party members who violate the provisions of the electoral code of conduct, and will not shield them from the due process of the law. So I affirm that we will use lawful mechanisms to resolve conflict by reporting to the conflict management committees and law enforcement agencies, and that we will not allow our members to carry and display offensive weapons such as knives and firearms. 6, we reaffirm that we will not interfere or disrupt the rallies or processions of other political parties. 7, we call upon the media to report truthfully, accurately, and responsibly on matters affecting the election process. The Zambia and 8, which is the signatory to this document, the Zambia Police Service undertakes to fairly, firmly, and promptly deal with anyone contravening the provision of the electoral code of conduct. Therefore, resolve to set aside past differences, abide by the provisions of this communique, adhere to the provisions of the electoral code of conduct, and move forward to ensure the conduct of peaceful elections.
How about security-wise? What are the expectations of the Zambia Police Service? Dr. Solomon Jerry is the Director of Operations in the Zambia Police Service.
The period of campaign during the time of voting and the post-election period, we expect everybody to be peaceful. And any person who been found in possession of carrying offensive weapons, be they pangas, knives, spears, stones, and something like that, as long as it falls within the ambit of an offensive weapon, those persons or such person will be found liable, will be held liable. So we do not care where you come from or which party you belong to. As long as you commit that offense, you are going to be arrested.
Yes, with all the efforts that have been made to prevent violence, it would be foolish for any individual to engage into violence as it shall not only be the enemies that shall suffer the consequences, but also the families of the violence perpetrators and the nation at large. This has been Lucky Sichula reporting.
uzekwanisa kudya binzi yomo ukalipa kuchaiti ade kamba kamuti siwoneka bwino kupeza kuti pena tenanti watibula landlord patient wamenya doctor kondakta amenye passenger imwe tizakhala bwanji bilizi